Not every emergency
Council of
requires
Governments
people.
to order. It's May 4th at 1:30. And so could, Julie, could you do the roll call? Yes.
Here.
Here.
Director Chris. Here. Caltrans Tasha Alstrand. Chair Hashak.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a quorum. So, number 2 is Assembly Bill 2449, notifications and considerations. Are there any to be noted?
We have not received any notifications, but Julie, Tasha's in the waiting room and needs to be let in. If you can admit her, please. Okay.
Okay, so we are going to,
There was a pop-up happening for when someone was waiting.
It looks like she left, maybe.
Oh, wait, here she is. Okay.
we're good? Okay, so we are going to convene as a Regional Transportation Planning Agency. We're going to recess as a RTPA and reconvene as a Policy Advisory Committee. We have the consent calendar. Are there any comments about the consent calendar? Seeing none, we'll look for a motion.
I move approval.
Second.
Okay, any public comment? Seeing none in the chambers, any online? Okay. Could we do a roll call vote, please?
Director Mulhern. Director Alanis.
Yes.
Director Chris.
Yes.
Director Hashak.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, we're on to public expression. So if there's anyone in the public who wants to comment on items that are not on the agenda, now's your time. You'll have 3 minutes. Okay, please come up and state your name.
Resident of Red Valley for the last 55 years. Been on Laughlin Way for 40 years. I've asked for a speed limit to be posted years and years ago when Kerry Brown was on the supervisors when they were developing that area. It never got done, and now I've asked the county. They said it takes a petition and then all of this stuff. I have no time for this. It should be pretty black and white. It's a residential. It should be 35 miles an hour. The amount of traffic that comes through there from the school daily down Road End to hit Laughlin Way. The school, it would be great also if the school could work on some kind of round their facility, you know, picking up these kids. It has made a mess up at West Road and North States. That whole area really needs a roundabout. I mean, this all kind of goes together. So North State Street and the West Road exit, that area is a congested mess. It has now become an area where some truckers, actually one guy from Willits, and I spoke with him because I don't like to be the Karen of the valley, as they say. I feel bad for all the Karens. They've made a muddy, rutted mess. I've asked the county, hey, you know, these guys are parking there all weekend long, and that's along with the pop-up taco thing, but that's a whole other story. That's least of my problems, but it is a congested mess. It is being used as a as a personal parking lot for these truckers. There's litter after the taco thing goes down the next day. There's litter, there was baby diapers, bottles, cans. You can drive there right now. The guys with the taco thing do clean up their mess pretty good, because I asked them, I said, hey, please pick up your trash, you know. I'm the one that went and talked to the truck driver, you know, and I shouldn't have to do that, you know, and it's a free-for-all up there now in that corner. It's almost become turf, turf kind of a thing. The guys are parking their trucks further down by the old cookie factory, which is fine. It's not in the sight way. When you're driving road, that's been my path for 40 years. And if I have to pull over and check my rig for something, I haul big trailers and whatnot, there's no place for me even to pull over because they're side by side. They made a rutted mess. They've dented the fence. There's no place for the regular truckers to pull over and take a nap. I mean, not say regular truckers, but the guys that just need to take a nap or wait for the loading. Some of these rigs stay there all weekend long. I do have footage of it. I'd rather not do that. I'd rather not put these people out there like that. But I probably have used my 3 minutes right now, and I don't really know if I got 3. Wrong way drivers on that coming. I had one coming right at me a couple months ago. The exit there. Google takes you, if you're heading north to the gas station, will take you to that freaking the exit. It's happened now multiple times. Nobody's gotten killed yet. So I think a lot of this could be solved by a big, huge, well-prepared roundabout in that area. So I hope this happens. Roadside litter in this county is insane. I can't believe that they don't have the inmate crew doing it again somehow or another. Work it out. I guess they don't want to have to body check them each time. Get an x-ray machine. Get the guys that want to get out and do something. I mean, the roadside litter is horrific, and then it goes right down the drain to all of these gutters. You look, there's freaking bottles, there's shit everywhere. Anyhow, that's it. I don't have a lot of time for this stuff. I thank you for your time. If you could consider any of these subjects and go forth with it, I have gotten nowhere. I have called the county, I've called the CHP, called the county. Mr. Howard, he is not, he's done with me. He's like, this is, they can park 18 feet from the curb and they can stay there for 72 hours and they can move 2 feet and it's still okay. They're still, so something needs to be rewritten in the county, parking on the county roads, side of the roads. Caltrans has it. Caltrans has signs. They don't let people set up camp and have a personal parking lot on the sides of the roads where people can't even pull over anymore. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, the timer was on.
Good morning. I'm sorry, just 1 moment before we continue. We do have people in the waiting room again.
Oh, do you want me to get out?
No, you can continue. I was just letting Julie know that there are people that need to be let in.
Okay.
Online, yes.
Good morning, familiar faces. Thank you for being here. Thank you for having this moment. I just wanted to thank Jessie Tanning for her comments. I live on West Road. I've been living there for the past 8 years. And I wanna commend her on her observations. I battle with school traffic as well. I see the traffic from the trucks, the garbage. But since I live on West Road and my living quarters are adjacent to it, with nothing in between but a little yard, I notice that there is an incredible amount of very dangerous driving going on West Road. And I know from my friends and colleagues at the Grange that it also happens on East Road. People drive 50, 60, 70 miles an hour on that road past my house very regularly. I work in my front yard. I have people who trim my edges, and they just say, it's unbelievable what's going on here. There is no traffic control. The speed limit is supposed to be 40 miles, goes down to 30 or 25 miles by the school, and they just take advantage of this incredibly long straight vector to speed up and make it very hard for all the folks who live on West Road, who have driveways on West Road, to get in and out of their properties. I've had it where people have passed me on the left side while I was trying to turn left into my property, into my driveway, and it's just uncontrolled Wild West speeding. And we need help. We need help from whoever can help us with putting more speed limitations signs out there. I think if we repeated 40 miles over there, or maybe even reduce it to 35, that would be great help. Sometimes I catch myself. I'm driving out, I'm at 41, I'm going like, oh, go down, slow down. So repeating it to people who are a little bit unconscious or slow in adapting to what it really needs to be done helps. I think lowering the speed limit would be the ultimate solution, and more control. Let's get some people out there who give away tickets and help us live our lives. People can't hike anymore there. People can't bike anymore on West Road. Anyway, you know the story. We've been telling this for many, many years. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, MCOG Board. I'm Gizmo. I try to feed this to you from what I gather from folks. So I want to thank the people who did come in today. I've spoken with them in the past to try to narrow this into a funnel so that you're just dealing mostly with me as best I can. But I think we needed to hear from the folks behind me who did come in today. I'd like to speak to two things today. One is the MTA. I know it's on the agenda, but I'm just going to speak to the solar panel and the amount of solar panels that are being put up on our county property. And I know there's a new project that's at the south end of town. My opinion is that we should be able to charge any one of our county vehicles with the solar power that we produce before, what I'm going to say, giving it to PG&E and then buying it back. I think that is really going to put us into the future and is going to keep the cost as far as PG&E, what it costs to get that power back, is going to keep that in the realm of a budget that we could look at and figure out. Second thing I'd like to talk about today is traffic studies. I'd like to talk about surface street traffic studies, and not necessarily on the freeway, but surface street traffic studies should include walking traffic, bicycle traffic, and equestrian traffic. This idea that a traffic study only includes a vehicle that is powered by a gas engine is not fair to the rest of us who pay the taxes to use the roads. So a traffic study should include the speed of walking, the speed of bicycles, the speed of a horse. If we just continue as a county, and the Department of Transportation continues to go by these traffic studies that are, oh, well, people are going 45 and the speed limit's 35. So if most people are going 45, we're going to make the speed limit 45. That traffic study does not include the most of the people who might be using the road, whether it's kids walking or biking. So I believe that this county and this entity should not look at any traffic study, should not waste the time on a traffic study unless it includes pedestrian traffic, equestrian traffic, and bicycle traffic. Because the word traffic, if you look it up as law, it includes all of those. So that's the law talk. So I'll leave that with you folks. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Hey, I had a question for our executive director. Do you know, our director of transportation for the county, Howard DeShiel, was looking for a grant to do kind of an overall traffic study to look at speed limits and everything. Do you know if what the status is of that?
For speed limits?
Well, he was looking at, to put in how to do traffic calming measures and everything.
There has not been anything that has come to MCOG as a request. I think that he had discussed the idea of looking at policies, right? Some kind of policy development in terms of traffic calming.
Correct. Yeah.
Before anything could be implemented. But so I don't know. I can bring that up at the next technical advisory committee meeting and see if it's something they are pursuing. But we have not received an application for that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I know. I was just up in Covelo this weekend, and they put in the speed tables, not speed bumps, but the tables.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the first time in California's history that they've done it for highway, and it really has slowed down the traffic in downtown Covelo to an incredible extent, and people aren't complaining about them anymore either. They got the right number in there finally, and it is, it's just something people live with now, and traffic is calmed down, and so
Yeah, we can follow up with County DOT about that. And yes, I believe that it was for traffic calming, that type of thing.
Okay. All right. Any further comments online? Okay. So thank you for those comments, and we will be taking those into consideration. Okay, number 10 is adoption of resolution number M 2026, approving the 2026 Mendocino County Regional Transportation Plan and Active Transportation Plan. And this is continued from April 6th. Okay. And we are also going to consider that with item 15, F1, which is the Regional Housing Needs Assessment. Okay, so we're going to take those both together because they kind of fit together for what we're doing. Okay. So I'll look to our executive director.
Yes, so this is something, it is on here listed because it was continued from a prior meeting. However, as James will explain, we are not actually recommending action on this today due to requirements associated with the regional housing needs allocation, which is item 15FI. So I will go ahead and hand it over to James to give you details on that.
Good afternoon. So, as Nafili said, we are not planning to adopt the RTP and ATP today. We have been working with Housing and Community Development on the RENA process, and we submitted a methodology back in February, I believe on the 10th, and it took them almost their full 60-day review period to get back to us. We got an email or a letter from them dated April 3rd explaining that our current iteration of the methodology did satisfactorily further 3 of the 5 statutes or objectives that are in statute. Actually, no, sorry, 2. And we still needed to do some work to get the other 3 across the finish line. And so we made some modifications to it and submitted that back to HCD. And they got back to us on the 22nd of April saying, this is better, but still not quite there. And so we had a meeting with them the following day and asked them, you know, what is it that we need to do to get across this finish line? They have a workbook that they like to reference where they run our numbers through. And apparently their workbook wasn't happy with our numbers. And so we asked to see the workbook. They declined. But they did, however, give us a range. They wanted additional units to be transferred from the county to the city of Ukiah. And so I made those changes to see if the new numbers would work. The new numbers do work. However, the city of Ukiah did have some issues with it, understandably. And so we are working with the 5 jurisdictions to, I believe the current plan is going to be move forward with the numbers that we have at the moment, and at the same time submit a letter to HCD stating that, you know, we understand these are the numbers that they came up with, however, we don't agree with them and here's why. There is, part of the whole RENA process does allow for agencies to appeal the determination. And the only issue with that is the city of Ukiah would submit an appeal to the board here. The board could then choose to say, okay, we're going to go and revert back to what it was, but then HCD still has to approve that new number, and they have the jurisdiction or the authority to then set it at whatever they want. So essentially, it would just be a circular process. We'd end up back right where we're at now. We have a meeting with HCD, I believe, tomorrow. I'm not exactly sure what we're going to talk about at that meeting. They asked to have it. And we've invited the jurisdictions if they're able to come. But for now, the plan is to bring all of this back for the June meeting. There isn't really any detriment to pushing the RTP out 1 month. There's no financial ramifications. We've already asked for an extension through Caltrans through, I believe, August 25th, just in case something happens at the June meeting and we have to push it to the August meeting. So that's where we are. And I guess just for reference, it ended up being almost an additional, between the last two iterations, almost 400 units to the city of Ukiah. Fort Bragg took an extra 126 and Willits took an extra 97. The county is okay with their numbers because they got a reduction of 600 units. But HCD doesn't really understand reality in some aspects. Questions?
All right. Any questions or comments from the board?
I will add a little to say that the units that have been shifted from the county to the cities are predominantly or entirely in the lower income categories, because the units in the regional housing needs allocation are broken down into income levels. And so the issue is that, I mean, the issue with increasing any kind of units within the city of Ukiah is that there's very little, Ukiah is pretty much built out. And so they will be cramming a lot of people into very few remaining areas in order to accommodate that. And so there are really valid concerns on the part of the city about how they would accommodate that. And then, what would be the overall effect if they were able to. It's going to be a real imbalance in what neighborhoods might look like, which is not ideal for anybody. It's also been just an overall very frustrating experience, because essentially we have, since the last time we went through this RENA process 8 years ago, we have lost any kind of local control we had over this project or process. When James most recently reached out to HCD and said, well, understandably, our local agencies are not entirely on board with, the numbers that you are dictating to us. And we want to work with them because we're hoping to avoid appeals. They said, well, just remember, you have until whatever the date is, sometime in May 18th, to resolve any of our issues and resolve any of HCD's issues. So basically we have to, our hands are tied. We don't really have a path forward that doesn't involve complying with HCD's requirements, and most of these more detailed requirements, like the actual numbers they're looking for, are developed by staff. So there's statute that kind of lays out general principles, but then it's HCD staff that is really coming up with the details of how those are implemented. It's been very frustrating, and ultimately, it's the local agencies that will have the real repercussions from this, unfortunately. So we want to do this, even though we have very few options. We want to do it in a way that at least is acknowledging the concerns that they all have, that we have. So that's where we are.
So just from a numbers perspective, what was approved by HCD, the city of Ukiah gets 1,590 total units, of which 992 are low income. So that just goes to Nafili's point about, it's going to drive certain neighborhoods to be, all low income just because of what's available land-wise.
They also, HCD has, a lot of their reasoning behind this is that Ukiah is the largest center of job opportunities in the county. And so they want housing to be close to jobs. And we've pointed out multiple times, somebody could live in the unincorporated area, just, a little outside of the city of Ukiah, and have equal, if not better, access to some of those jobs than, depending on where they were within city of Ukiah. But they are unwilling to consider that as a factor. They say it has to be within the jurisdiction. It's, I think, I don't know if it's just trying to apply maybe rules that make a little more sense in an urban area, although I still am not sure it would make a whole lot of sense, but they are applying rules that just don't make sense for us.
Well, we appreciate your efforts. because it's got to be very frustrating. So, well, good luck with your meeting tomorrow or whatever.
Go. And so we do have this on the agenda today, not to continue it to a specific date, but just that we will, recommend that we bring it back at a future meeting so that we're not agendizing it again and again because we've continued it.
Okay. Okay, any further questions or comments? Seeing none? Okay, all right, so we will move on to agenda item 11, which is the Technical Advisory Committee recommendations of April 15th, 2026, adoption of final fiscal year 26-27 planning overall work program.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. I'm Alexis Pedrati. I included a staff report for you guys on the final overall work program. I was here last month, talking about last month, talking about the draft overall work program. So as promised, here I am with the final. This is part of our process, going through the applications to the draft to the final. And so since the final overall work program last month, we have received Caltrans comments. They were minor, but have been incorporated into the document, and you can find them in bold or strike out throughout the document. Some additional changes worth mentioning are to a couple of the work elements that I just wanted to go over very briefly with you guys. And if you wanted to follow along in the work program or in some of the spreadsheets so that you can see funding, etc., there's page 12 and 13 in the overall work program that's easy to follow by work element. So one of the first primary changes is in work element 2, the planning management and general coordination. $35,000 of LTF has been removed from this element and shifted into the project reserve. Following the receipt of the 26-27 cost proposal from Davy Bates Consulting, we were able to reduce that contract amount and take some money and put it back into the project reserve. Work element 5 is the Mendocino County Sea Level Rise Roadway Impact Study. We estimated the carryover at $100,000. That, of course, is estimated and will definitely change in the amendment, in the first amendment. So that will just be a current carryover placeholder for the project so that we can continue moving forward with this project and then shift in the actuals into the amendment. Work element 7 is another one for planning, programming, and monitoring. We did increase that by an estimated $25,000 of planning, programming, and monitoring carryover funding to allow staff to begin carrying over and utilizing some of these expiring funds so that we don't get in a jam further on in the year. Furthermore, work element 8, the regional vehicle miles traveled, the mitigation program. This is also a placeholder with some estimated carryover at $200,000. Again, all of the actuals will be reflected, but this just gives us the opportunity to keep that project rolling into the new fiscal year. Work element 10, the SR20 Willits Multimodal Circulation and Intersection Improvement Study. This element also remains a placeholder. This is a pending Caltrans Sustainable Communities grant application. Since the awards won't be Since we will not be notified until the summer, this will just remain a placeholder until which we either receive it or we do not, and then we will shift funds accordingly. Work element 11, we have pavement management program update. This project is also a carryover project. It continues to move forward, but we are shifting approximately $35,000 of carryover into the 26-27 just to provide flexibility in case we need to do some final closeout tasks, etc., with the consultant. Work element 16, the multimodal transportation planning element, we have just estimated $5,000 of rural planning assistance funds. This has been added for MCOG planning staff activities. Caltrans likes to see some RPA carried over into the work program. This is one element that seems to have a little bit of available RPA still currently, so we did just estimate a small amount moving forward. And then again, the project reserve has been increased by $35,000, as I mentioned above, adjusting the DBC contract proposal. This brings our new total for the final 26-27 overall work program to $1,251,084. I included the full document for you guys to review. I'm happy to dive into it with any questions, comments, or concerns. This document is also here for recommendation today, accepting the tax recommendation to adopt the 26-27 final overall work program, authorize the executive director or designee to sign certifications and OWP agreement and forward to Caltrans as required. I'm happy to answer any questions. Sure. Sure. So the bold is so that Caltrans and or the Technical Advisory Committee or staff can see any changes since the last document that was prepared. So that's so if Caltrans had requested that we add in a word or if we shift and clearly titles and subheadings and whatever, that also isn't something that's going to change as much. But like you might find in there, for example, under work element 7, task 4 has a statement in there that's been bolded. So staff went in and added some verbiage to be consistent with what Caltrans had asked us to include. So those are some of the changes that you will see. If something's going to be removed later on, you'll see the strikeout and it will be removed at a later date.
I understand. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a motion to accept the recommended action? Okay,
Second.
all right. Been moved and seconded to roll call vote.
Director Raffanan? Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. Director Mulhern?
Yes.
Director Alanis?
Yes.
Director Chris?
Yes.
Caltrans Tasha Alstrand?
Yes.
Chair Hashak?
Yes. So the motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pedrati. All right, so we're on to item 12, which is the fiscal year 26-27 RTPA and the COG budget presentation and workshop.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to share my screen. I have a presentation to share with you all. Okay.
I'll just mention that I'm here just as a resource, and Michael's going to give the presentation. Thank you.
So some of you are familiar with our budget development process. Others, you are not. So today we're going to walk through that together. You have my written report in the agenda packet detailing steps taken through the work of our committees and where we are in the process. I've updated the usual slide presentation to reflect the current outlook. And this will be available on the board meeting webpage after this meeting. We don't have to spend too much time on all these slides, maybe just focus on more of the important highlights and where you guys have any questions. So as I continue on with the presentation, please don't hesitate to stop me if you need clarification on anything. Now, before we get started, I want to kind of talk about the image that we have on the workshop. So each year we like to choose a photo that features transportation somewhere here in Mendocino County. This photo was taken by Janet Orth on State Route 162, passing through Caltrans construction zones, and kind of far off in the distance you can see the new bridge being built. Okay, for the first slide. We have local, state, and federal funds of various types. These are our major sources. MCOG is responsible for administering TDA in Mendocino County, which provides a combination of both local and state funds. The other state funds listed, they're available for planning and transit. The annual federal funds are routinely exchanged for state funds, which makes things easier for the local agencies to utilize. There's less red tape with state funds as opposed to federal funds. We have more on that slide later on in the presentation. And then the NREN are funds that come from PG&E that are approved by the California Public Utility Commission. All right, can you guys read this slide? Just kidding. You're not supposed to. This is just the one-page summary. It's kind of a snapshot of everything. The color-tinted highlights are just for the slide to show where those 4 major revenue categories appear on the summary page. And then next is, there's a supplemental format for the budget. This one's arranged by local, state, and federal sources, just in a different layout that allows for more itemizing and notes and also a comparison to the previous year. So this is your more traditional budget that you guys are probably familiar with. The new NREN the NREN program is landing under state funds, which is fairly appropriate given that they are approved by the CPUC. I believe so, yes. Yeah. But this is just a snapshot, so you guys can kind of understand what this one is compared to the summary sheet. Now this is the explanatory notes that you have in your packet. This is actually a really good document because it allows you to kind of get familiar with each funding source that we have to deal with. You have, LTF Reserve Fund. I do want to note that I do need to make an update to the bottom of the LTF Reserve Fund, and we'll get to that in a later slide. But I do recommend kind of reviewing this document. As you guys know, I did first, started this new position, and this document definitely helped me understand, the ins and outs of each of the funding sources. Okay, so highlights of this year's budget. We're going to get into revenues, and then we'll get into allocations afterwards. The county auditor provided an estimate in February at $4.259 million for local transportation funds. You can see here that compared to the past several years, we are seeing local revenues start to level off, where last year we believe they were trending downward. And the reason for that is because you can see in 23-24, we had $4.375 million, 24-25, $4.216. And then the current year that we're in, it was $4.161, but the new estimate we received is $4.259, so it's starting to kind of come back. We've been able to build a reserve fund in anticipation of any uncertainties that could lie ahead. STA, the State Transit Assistance from Fuels Tax, is also starting to dip lower than the previous year, which was at $971,000. Which was down 14% from 24-25. The state controller's preliminary estimate came in for the 26-27 fiscal year at $876,000. So this is an expected trend as the state plans for restructuring of transportation revenues overall. We still have SB 1 money for the TIRCP and the ZETCP program that will help fund MTA with vehicles, infrastructure, and a new pilot service.
I was muted right now. Okay, Director Alstrand,
Yes.
can you hear us all right?
Yeah, I can hear the presentations, but some of the comments and questions seem to be either like the mic isn't working. So some of the discussion I'm not hearing.
Yeah, I think maybe we weren't just being consistent about unmuting when we were asked, when there were questions and answers. So we'll try to be more conscientious about that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so I'll continue. So the NREN program is underway with new energy efficiency services. We will be discussing that in a later slide. Do you guys have any, total revenue so far for this coming fiscal year are $16.7 million. Do you guys have any questions so far? All right, so now into allocations. So LTF reserves are set at 15% this year, which again, we'll discuss in more detail in the reserve slide. The planning program is doing okay with a bump in state assistance and some active grants. Alexis just talked about that in the previous item. Federal funds are unknown at this point. We have not received the current years, and we're not sure about this coming years. So that's up in the air. We believe NREN funds are secure, coming from a different revenue stream that have accumulated for this purpose. But again, we'll get into those in the following, or in the NREN slide. So the total proposed allocations are $10.3 million. Okay, LTF revenues for fiscal year to date. So this is item 12A on the agenda, just so you guys can kind of keep track. The budget for the current fiscal year was $4.161 million. According to the budget with the fiscal year to date, we should be at $2.774 million. Currently, we're at $2.779 million, which is good news. That puts us about $25,000 ahead of where we're supposed to be. It's not guaranteed that that'll trend. We could get, for the next 4 months, lower amounts. The goal is to hit the budget estimate, but there's a chance that we could go over or under. Looking at the LTF trend line, just briefly, the first dip on the left reflects the Great Recession around 2009. Then the COVID bump on the right from fiscal years 2021 to 21-22 reflect the pandemic economy. Smaller spikes mostly represent differences between estimates and actuals. The trend is still moving upward. The red line dropping down at the end partially reflects lower proposed allocations for 24-25 in order to replenish the reserve fund. There's no need to do that again this year. This has been the final step in determining available revenues from LTF, which is to set the reserve fund balance. This year is the first step in making allocations, but does determine how much is available for other allocations. Next year, if any surplus revenue from this current year will go into the fiscal year 27-28 budget. The 3-year window, we're in the middle step right now. I won't go into this unless you guys have any questions. Okay. Okay, so this is a snapshot from the supplemental format. This is the budget calculus used for the LTF funds. This is, so last year, the difference of LTF reserve balance, available balance of $638,244 expressed here as a revenue, less the allocation of $607,163, released $31,081 that flows down through the other allocation. This year, the higher available reserve balance of $756 less the proposed higher set aside at 15% would release $117,000 for other allocations. Do you guys kind of understand how this works with the LTF reserve allocation? So once we get the estimate from the auditor, we, at the executive committee, we figure out how much we want to set for the reserve. So for this year, it is at 15%, which leaves it at $639,000, and any excess over that gets allocated to everything else. Do you guys have any questions about that?
And I think 15% is kind of our historical average.
I'd say it's on the high side. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We've been, the minimum in the policy is 5%, but we've been trying to keep a larger reserve than that. And MTA management is on board with us in that. They'd like to have that reserve there as well. So it has been more in the 10 to 15% range in recent years.
Okay.
So LTF allocation priorities. So this is consistent with the TDA law or policy. You have administration first, then 2%, bike and ped, planning program around 3%, and then the rest goes to transit. So here's how LTF has been allocated over the past 15 years or so. With the new proposal added in, you can see the first drop at the Great Recession with steady growth followed by the COVID spike. Now we're getting back to pre-pandemic levels, right around the $4 million mark. MCOG's own programs show at the base of those bars below the $1 million mark, with the remaining LTF goes to MTA, which is the purple. So the next slides show the 3-year breakdown for each of the 4 major allocation priorities. This is 12B on the agenda, starting with administration. So here you can see admin costs are keeping fairly steady. We do have a built-in CPI rate of increase for inflation for the staffing contract. The current CPI increase is at 3.1%. The new 5-year contract with Down Associates started October 1, 2024. We try and constrain these costs, and Nephili has endeavored, to spread these costs appropriately across available funds other than LTF. Just a quick note on percentage of budget on the bottom row refers to percent of total revenues from all sources, not just LTF. Of the total revenues of about 15 million, we usually oversee administration has averaged about 5% or less annually. But just to clarify, percent of budget is the total admin cost divided by total revenues.
We have made a calculation of the percentage of LTF. It's going to be a higher number, and that's on one of the budget pages. I'm not sure if you have that in your packet yet. It'll be in the budget package. But I guess our reasoning is that administration is overseeing all of the different funds that we manage. So we're showing you that percentage, and it's a much lower number. Yeah, and that final bar on the right for 26.7 shows the percent of budget going a little higher. It's not that administration is increasing in cost, it's just we have a lower overall budget. Last year it was about 22 million, and now we're down to about 16. A lot of that was the Covelo Trail project being completed. So that's one of the big ticket items that we had before that we won't have going forward.
Okay, planning. So this is 12C on the agenda. The Technical Advisory Committee proposal uses the traditional 3% of the auditor's LTF estimate for planning. For many years, planning allocations were at 100,000 of new funds, with the first increase in 2017-18. Recent increases have been primarily due to Caltrans constraining allowable uses of the state planning funds that we depend on in our planning program. Local funds are needed for flexibility, but the percent of budget is the new LTF divided by the new auditor's estimate. This next slide we're going to skip over. This covers the OWP that Alexis just went over. So now we're on to the transit allocation. When the executive committee met in late February, the MTA claim had not yet been submitted. The committee recommended that the remaining LTF available for transit in the amount of 3.5 million be set aside for that purpose pending MTA's claim. MTA submitted their annual claim on March 31st, and it was reviewed and approved by the Transit Productivity Committee at their April 13th meeting. Meeting minutes are available on our website. We did put a revised minutes up there. The TPC recommended a finding that there are no unmet transit needs that are reasonable to meet for fiscal year 26-27. We will be asking the SS TAC for a recommendation also. The TPC made some other recommendations dealing with the performance and standards, which I will report out on a separate item. And the final allocation priority gets most of the money, typically around 80% of the local funds.
Yes, may I have a quick question?
Yes.
The decreases on the lower half of the little blue squares says 15.8%. for the 24-25 year, 25-26 year says decrease 5.5%. What is decreasing? It looks like the MTA budget is going up. It looks like the total is going up. What is actually the decreasing? What's decreasing?
It has been trending downward as revenues have come down. We are seeing the local sales tax revenues falling a bit,
Okay.
and they're tending to flatten out about now for the coming year.
But so those decreases 5.5%, 25-26. That's not referencing the previous year. It didn't go down.
It's, yes.
Oh, it is referencing the previous year.
Yeah.
Okay.
We had some pretty high estimates in the last few years. It kind of came out of the pandemic economy, which was surprisingly high in revenues, and had to have some adjustments, revised county auditor's estimates to get back to what was actually coming in. And so we've seen revenues drop, and we've seen the allocation drop correspondingly.
Okay, so it is a larger percent of the budget than what it was previously, but it's still decreasing. I think I understand. Thank you.
I think it's kind of a result of
I think it's
those
an error.
auditor's estimates being too high.
You
As they
think there might
were
be an
a couple
error?
of years ago, they were.
Yeah, because the 25-26 total is 3.5, and then the 24-25 is 3.3, so that decrease of 5.5 should be increase of 5.5.
Okay. Yeah.
I was, yeah,
Have to
I
drill
thought it was a
down.
percentage of the total revenue. So,
So the percentage of budget at the bottom isn't of total revenue, it's just of LTF, the total LTF
Just
estimate.
LTF, yeah.
okay.
Okay.
The prior year, the 24-25 decrease of 15%, that one makes sense because we had this like peak kind of coming out of the pandemic. We had this peak of revenues, also because we had, had kind of taken a conservative approach early in the pandemic, and then so we had more LTF reserves in some years, or LTF reserves to release into the budget in some years. So anyway, in the years leading up to 24-25, we had hit the peak LTF, and so then there was a decrease.
Well, that's a good point, Nafili, because we were seeing surplus revenue that we were able to allocate to MTA. Now we're not having surplus revenue.
But the 24 to 25, or the 24, 25 to 25, 26 should be
Increase.
an increase rather than.
Apologize about that.
Yeah. Good catch.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry,
the
is
math
this
is
actually a typo on the slide? I see where
Yes.
you're going
Yeah.
now,
It might
because
be.
the
If you're comparing from year to year, it looks like a typo. Yeah. If it's comparing something else that's not on the thing, then I was curious about what that was
I see what you've got
referencing.
here. MTA's allocation, total
should be-
allocation did go up. It was an increase,
Yes,
sorry.
it was a 5.5% increase, not a 5.5%.
Thank you. And I appreciate all your efforts on that. I really was just checking for my own understanding, so.
I'm glad you caught that
All
one.
right.
The typo.
Now I'm gonna get in trouble when we get back to the office.
Yeah. But revenues have been coming down from where they were, and we're having to kind of flatten out this budget and get used to getting by with a little bit less than they were for a while.
Okay. So state funding from SB1. So this is just a reminder of Senate Bill 1 funds and MCOG's budget. We have numerous Caltrans. We've won numerous Caltrans planning grants annually for projects in our local communities. The ATP is the primary source for bike and ped or non-motorized improvements. Additionally, there are SB1 funds for the cities and counties that flow down directly from the CTC, which is the California Transportation Commission. This shows a similar trajectory to LTF with regular surface transportation block grant or STBG revenues, which MCOG elects to exchange for the more flexible state dollars that we mentioned, in the first slide. It started around 500,000 a year. Now it's topped 1 million under the IIJA, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, or also known as the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. The new estimate for fiscal year 26-27 is $1,005,000, and that estimate we took from the actuals for this current year, so that may change.
That one has been trending down a little bit as well in revenue, kind of flattening out.
Okay, STBG allocation priorities. Policies from the board's strategic planning in 2010 are still in effect. We're running 3 programs in this fund. Funding based on federal estimates allocated by the state to the regional level. Reviewing the 3 sub-allocations. According to MCOG's policy, the allocation would be as follows. So partnership funding program at $100,000 off the top. Fund balance is around $500,000, which I'll update in the allocation resolution. The regional manager and local assistance project delivery, that's $90,000 off the top. And the CPI increases coming from a balance carry forward of about $300,000. Formula allocation is $815,000. So the cities and counties get between $97,000 to $236,000, depending on the city. And the funds are flexible, so it's easy for the member agencies to utilize. You can find the STBG program fund balance in the fiscal audit. Do you guys have any questions? Okay, state funding from SB 125. So this is a formula-based TIRCP and ZETCP. TIRCP stands for Transit Intercity Rail Capital Program and Zero Emission Transportation Capital Program. Get those right? So this program helps fund MTA vehicles, infrastructure, and new pilot service. In the past, it's helped fund MTA operations. The 4-year allocation cycle of $11.6 million is in the MCOG amended plan, which is CALSTA approved. CALSTA is the California State Transportation Agency. The 26-27 budget proposes $5.9 million as a balance for later allocation. However, $283,000 will be allocated for fiscal year 26-27. Now the budget that you guys have, it'll reflect that in the final. Any questions about that? Okay, Northern Rural Energy Network, or NREN for short, is a regional organization that delivers energy efficiency programs and services to rural communities across Northern California. MCOG serves as the local implementator for Mendocino County, assisting residents, businesses, nonprofits, schools, and local governments with energy efficiency services and access to rebate and incentive programs. So one big takeaway you can see here is the jump from the 25-26 budget to the 26-27 budget. That's right around $144,000 an increase. There are several reasons for that. The first is the position reclassification from the senior specialist to analyst with a corresponding salary adjustment and a vacant specialist position. It includes a cost of living adjustment applied to staffing costs, the addition of a Civic Spark Fellowship employee, and a significant expansion of the energy efficiency kits distribution program. All costs do remain within the CPUC approved 4-year plan, ratepayer funding authorization through MCOG's contract.
So with the rebate and incentives and loan funds, where is that money coming from?
So the what you see in this budget does not include the actual rebates. So those flow, although MCOG has an allotted amount in each year. And I should point out the NREN budget, which is approved by the NREN governing partners, flows from the CPUC. their fiscal year is a calendar year, so we are, it doesn't align very well with the MCOG budget, so the NREN governing partners just approved basically the 2026 final budget utilizing cost savings from 2025, because that was done in the first part of 2026. So there's a little misalignment in how the timing of the budgets work out. But the incentives are a separate budget, but we do not pay the incentives directly. We work with the local residents to process the incentives, help them apply for the incentives. But then the payment is actually issued by Redwood Coast Energy Authority for all of the NREN partners. And so those are held by our CEA. So they don't show up in our budget. We can get that at the next MCOG meeting. We're going to present, or the NREN staff is going to present a little work plan for the year, and so we can provide that information, the actual budget or incentive amounts at that time.
Well, my concern was more about where just that those people are getting the rebates and everything. So it is coming from the RCEN.
Yes,
right?
Okay. Payments for incentives would come directly from that. And Orion is here and will be giving a report later on, but we're actually hoping to see a real increase in those this month. There have been some revisions to them, and they've kind of been relaunched at the start of this month. And so we are hoping that that will lead to more people taking advantage of those potential benefits.
Okay. And then with the Civic Spark intern, so is that person on board now?
Not yet. It's something we have to apply for. So we don't know for sure if that we've never done this before, so don't know how competitive it is, but we'll be applying for a Civic Spark Fellow. Those fellowships run from October through September, the beginning of October through the beginning of September. So it's an 11-month fellowship. So it would be, if successful, it would be starting this October. One of the other changes that was just approved by the NREN governing partners, which again, I feel like I'm probably taking from what Orion's going to be reporting on later, but there was a fairly significant change to the finance program within NREN. Initially, it had been envisioned that the Sierra Business Council would, which is one of the governing partners that oversees the implementation in the northern Sierra counties, that they would take the lead role on rolling out a finance program, because it's something that they had done with one of the other programs outside of NREN. So they had that experience. We've recently received a report from Frontier Energy that what we had originally planned for a number of reasons isn't really feasible, and so we're kind of shifting gears, and we'll be working more with some local organizations. We've started discussions with EDFC to do so. Things will be done a little more locally rather than centralized at SBC. This changes the workload distribution within that program. So rather than having the work done primarily by SBC, all of the NREN partner organizations will be doing a little bit more work in-house. So that means some added staffing workload, and so having that Civic Spark Fellow will help pick up some of that increased work.
Yeah. Well, that's a great thing to be pursuing.
Yeah, the other governing partners have all had Civic Spark Fellows and have nothing but positive things to say about the program. So we're hoping that works out.
Okay, only a few slides more. So what's not in the budget? What's not in the budget is the Regional/State Transportation Improvement Program, or RTP and STIP for short. This is for capital programming. There's no cash flow, although the only thing that is technically in the budget are the PPM funds. Lexi touched on that in the previous item. And then also the Service Authority for Freeway Emergencies. This is Mendocino Safe. It has a separate annual budget. And you guys will see this at the June meeting. Okay. Budget adoption for fiscal year 26-27. So you have the staff and the committee recommendations on each aspect of budget, pending one more SS TAC meeting to recommend the unmet transit needs. In June, allocating resolutions are to be adopted with detailed exhibits and findings, so I'll bring all that to you in the next agenda packet. The final budget will be available online as a PDF document, and you can request a bound document, kind of like what you see here. Typically, the planning program is amended more than once by board action, and that can affect the budget and will be updated administratively as needed. You guys have the supplemental format, and it has some highlights like the orange and yellow. Those are typically the stuff that will be updated, although this next year we don't know. Maybe they will, maybe they won't.
Yeah, those color highlights were several amendments that were made mid-year last year and are in this to this 25-26 budget. We try to come back to you mid-year, maybe in December, and consolidate all the changes into one amendment. Hopefully not have to do it too often.
Okay, any questions or
Right,
clarification?
any questions? All right, Director Raffanen? No?
There are
Okay.
probably just a few minor details and last minute things to put in the final. So we'll capture all those pieces and present the final next.
Okay, so that will come back in June. Good. Oh, any public comment? Seeing none in the chamber, none online? Okay. All right, so we'll see this again next month.
Thank you.
Thank you for a nice presentation. Okay, so we're on to number 13, Transit Productivity Committee Recommendations of April 13th, 2026.
Michael and Janet will be covering this one as well.
That's me again.
Oh, I guess that's yours again.
Okay, so TPC recommendations, annual review of transit performance and standards. So the TPC met in, what was it? April 13th. And the only standard due for update is the passengers per hour for short distance bus routes. The final TDA triennial performance audit of MTA, which was released in May of 2025, pointed a recommended standard from the Short Range Transit Development Plan that's dated June 2024. So the SR-TDP offers a more nuanced view of performance than MCOG's report, measuring individual service routes and providing more granular data. Attached with the staff report, or I guess at the bottom of it, you can kind of see the current MCOG standard at 10.2. The minimum that the SR-TDP recommended was 6, with a target of 8. So the TPC went on and recommended to have the standard set at 7. With the staff report is also kind of different spreadsheets that have the MCOG transit performance standards, and then it also has, an excerpt from the SR-TDP of the standards that they have recommended. And then it also includes the annual transit performance review for the year of 2025, as well as the 3-year average. Is there anything?
No, I would just say that looking at the annual transit performance review, you can see that, they're not hitting, a number of the performance standards aren't being met, but they're close. But the one that the TPC did recommend a change for the actual standards itself, you'll see it's pretty far off, and it has been far off for a while. So that's why I believe the recommendation came out in the short-range transit development plan, and why the TPC is now recommending a change to that particular standard.
Yeah, I think the TPC's thinking was that we are trying to bring it more in alignment with reality.
Yeah, they still have some room to improve. Ridership is sort of the key thing here. We just need more riders, and that will make everything improve. You know, you'll have more fare box revenue, and it'll make cost per passenger less, and it kind of all stems back to getting more riders. And that's been a problem across the board in the whole transit sector in the state, maybe nationally. Certainly the pandemic, you know, had a huge impact on transit. And so everybody's still recovering from that and trying to get people back on to the bus.
Okay, any comments from the board? Director Mulhern.
Thank you. I just wonder, is MTA discussing any options or alternatives, or does MCOG staff have any ideas about how to increase ridership? Like, we understand the problem. How are we trying to solve it?
We did, discuss it a little at the TPC meeting. There are some things that are proposed in the SB 125 funding and through the potential TIRCP grant that could hopefully increase ridership, including development of a new Ukiah Area Transit Center, a pilot program for the Laytonville-Covelo area. And I don't know if there are other things that MTA is considering. Oh, the fare simplification of their fare structure. So that was very complex before, and so a new simplified fare structure should make things a little easier and more appealing for riders as well. I see that Jacob King from MTA is on the call, so I don't know if he wants to respond to that.
Yeah, Jacob.
Hey, everybody. Thank you. We're doing quite a few things, like Executive Director Barrett pointed out. We are doing the simplification of the fare structure. We're coordinating with any housing developments and talking to them about potentially putting bus stops and ridership. We have been working on this transit center project, which will increase ridership just in the Ukiah area, if not countywide. We've been reviewing weak performing routes here in Ukiah, especially because of the way our budget is this year. So we have some plans to make some major adjustments there without reducing service, just fixing some of the problematic routes that we have by adjusting schedules where the ridership is consistently low. And then, as always, strengthening partnerships with social services, senior centers, schools, employers, housing providers. So, does that answer the question?
All right, any further comment from the board? Okay, seeing none. Any public comment? Seeing none in the chamber, none online. Right. Back to the board for a motion. Anyone want to approve the recommended action?
Bus routes from 10.2 to 7.0 as recommended by staff.
And how about the second part of that?
I would also like to make a motion to accept the TPC's report of the annual transit performance review through December 31st, 2025, and the recommended action for MTA.
I'll second both.
Oh, sorry.
Nope, go ahead.
Second.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll do a roll call vote.
Director Raffanan?
Yes.
Thank you. Director Raffanan?
Yes.
Director Mulhern?
Yes.
Director Alanis?
Yes.
Director Chris?
Yes.
And Chair Hashak?
Yes. Very good. Now we will recess as a Policy Advisory Committee. We will reconvene as a RTPA, ratify the action of Policy Advisory Committee. We have a motion to ratify that action.
Second.
All right. Roll call vote, please.
Director Raffanan?
Yes.
Director Mulhern?
Yes.
Director Alanis?
Yes.
Director Chris?
Yes.
And Chair Hashak?
Yes. Okay, we'll move on to reports. So, Caltrans, Director Alstrand.
Hello. Few updates today, starting with some funding opportunities. The 2026 Urban Greening Grant Program opened its concept proposal solicitation today. The Safe Streets for All call for applications will be closing on May 26th. And planning and supplemental planning applications for this program are only 2 to 3 pages, so it's not too late for those who are considering applying. They're anticipating a late spring, early summer opening for the local HSIP, which will have an increased funding capacity. And US DOT FHWA may be releasing transportation-focused grant opportunities, so more on that soon. Feasibility studies, we should have a consultant on board within the next month or so, month or two, to begin work on the Mendocino State Route 128 flood and feasibility study, which is funded by Protect funds. The Walla Downtown Streetscape Enhancement Project. The project met the Ready to List or RTL deadline last week. We anticipate allocation to occur at the August CTC meeting, advertise in September, award in October. Work is likely to begin in 2027, but we will actively engage with the community on timelines once a contractor is selected. And Caltrans District 1 Transportation Planning Open House will be hosting a public meeting called Our Transportation Future in Ukiah on July 15th at the Office of Education offices from 5:30 to 7 p.m. It's open to the public to engage with Caltrans on a wide variety of topics, including high-level corridor planning for US 101, the district transit plan identifying transit needs on the state highway system, funding opportunities generally, and we'll be having a flyer and information on social media coming soon. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. So, the Mendocino Transit Authority.
Hello again. So we're currently working on that TARCP grant application for the transit center with our partners, the City of Ukiah, PEP Housing, MCOG, and our consultant is actively pulling information so that we can submit the grant application by May 18th. MTA has taken delivery of 6 new all-electric buses, bringing the agency's total to 9. We'll be using the vehicles over in Fort Bragg as soon as we road test them here in Ukiah and in Willits. MTA is wrapping up that Title VI survey that's related to the countywide fare change. The proposed fare structure would create one consistent for the entire county. So like one fare will be able to take you from Fort Bragg clear to Santa Rosa. And then discount passengers would be able to ride for half of that general public fare. And that's all I got.
All right. Thank you. So the Great Redwood Trail. Director Mulhern.
Thank you. On April 26th, the Ukiah section of the Great Redwood Trail, which now includes Phase 4, had its first fun run. It was a 3-mile fun run. About 45 people showed up, which was very exciting. Some younger folks that have wellness businesses and athletes came. That was really great. A new running club participated. And that was in conjunction with the ribbon cutting and a ceremony in which Senator McGuire attended, opening officially Phase 4 of the Great Railroad Trail. So it was great, and Supervisor Hashek and Councilmember Chris were there, and it was a lovely little morning celebrating that new section and hopefully encouraging the community, because some people that have never been in 6 years, 10 years, however long it's been there, have never been on the trail as it existed, showed up for that event. So another opportunity for people that have not used the trail to try it.
Okay, very good. Let's see, we're at the MCOG staff. Summary of meetings. You can see it.
You have the report in the packet. I have nothing to add, but I'm happy to answer questions. There are no questions. I can go on. I do not have any miscellaneous administrative items. Our next meeting will be June.
MCOG planning staff.
We already heard the report for the regional housing needs allocation. So Hector is online to provide a report on the remaining planning projects.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Hector Ortega. I'm a regional project analyst with MCOG, and I will be going through an update on our regional planning projects, and I'll just go through all of them, and then I will be happy to answer any questions there at the end. So starting with work element 5, the Mendocino County Sea Level Rise Roadway Impact Study, MCOG staff and the consultant team reviewed the community workshop input, and that feedback was used to further supplement prior outreach, which included some of the surveys and other collateral we put out. And this implementation of the new feedback was used to elevate sites and not reduce existing scores. Based on this approach, several locations moved up in the ranking because of the community input. Following further discussion and score adjustments that MCOG staff had with the consultant team, the draft list of priority sites was refined. Some locations, like I mentioned, did see an increase. Others remain in the same spot, and others changed based on factors such as lower levels of community support, limited use, or comparatively lower vulnerability. Next, the consultant team will finalize this priority list and will distribute it to the whole project team. Outreach efforts will be coordinated to publicly share the final prioritized sites through the project website and other related communication outlets. Upon finalizing this list, the consultant team will expand technical analyses for these selected locations. Any questions on that?
Nope.
Okay. Moving on. Work element 11, the Mendocino County Pavement Management Program update. Field data collection began on the week of March 27th, as expected. As of April 20th of 2026, the data collection for the cities of Fort Bragg and Willits has been completed, and that collection for county maintained roads is approximately 50% complete. Next will come the data collection for the city of Ukiah, and pending on weather conditions, all data collection activities should have wrapped up at the end of April. The next project status meeting that we will have, the consultant team will provide us with an update, and that'll be on May 6th of 2026. At that time, we will have a more detailed progress update for our next meeting in June. And any questions on that?
Nope, continue on.
Okay. Work element 8, Mendocino County Regional Vehicle Miles Travel Mitigation Plan. On April 14th of 2026, MCOG staff released a request for proposals for the Mendocino County Regional Vehicle Miles Travel Mitigation Plan. Proposals are due on May 18th, and following that deadline, staff will review the proposals for responsiveness and compliance with the RFP requirements, and a consultant selection committee will be formed to evaluate and score responsive proposals and recommend the consultant for project award. No actions required at this time. The purpose of this item was just to provide an update and answer any questions you may have.
Okay, seeing no questions here, thank you for the report.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the Mr. Walker in the Northern Rural Energy Network.
Good afternoon, folks. So, some updates from NREN and then any questions you might have. Last week, we hosted all of our NREN partners here at Vichy Springs for a 2-day in-person meetup. A lot of good discussion, very productive, a lot of planning for a number of programs that we'll be launching over the next 6 months. And another event that happened a week ago Saturday, in collaboration with Ukiah Unified, Mendocino College, North Coast Builders Exchange, and Pace Supply, we put together a training day focused on building performance, HVAC, heat pumps, and energy efficiency for 25 students in the Construction Core program, which is a program that has graduating seniors that are training to go into the trades. So that was a very successful event, and we were happy to be a part of it and add energy efficiency and HVAC and heat pump related content to that training. So as Nafili had mentioned, we received feedback from our consultant regarding the finance program, and the basic feedback was rather than trying to lend folks money, you should put that money into rebates and incentives and basically give it to them that way to have a larger impact and better facilitate and encourage folks to take advantage of the various technologies and upgrade their homes. So to that end, we have reallocated a large portion of the finance funds into the incentive budgets, and that means that we'll be able to give away quite a bit more money through the rebate programs, both residential and commercial. And then we also still are going to be promoting the Go Green financing program, which applies across the state. And we'll be looking at getting a couple of local lenders involved in and hopefully participating with that program. And then we are having conversations. EDFC is the local CDFI, and we've identified that as a good way to potentially do a lending program. So we haven't abandoned the idea of the lending program. We're just looking at doing it through a CDFI, conversations with EDFC, and we should have more information on how that conversation is going in future months. We are relaunching our residential rebate program as of the first of the month here. The CPUC had put on hold a couple of our rebates pending updates from the building code related to heat pump technologies. They finally issued their directives, which allows us to go ahead and proceed with offering those rebates. So those rebates are now fully available again, and we have consolidated the rebate program, significantly increased the amount of funds that we'll be giving back through those rebates, and we're now relaunching that program to the public with increased rebates and fully available rebates for heat pumps. So we'll be doing a lot of promotion of that this month and in upcoming months. We are, currently gearing up for the event and outreach season. As the weather gets better, it's that time of year, so we've got plans to be out at quite a few events over the next few months, getting the word out. And then, yeah, we're in the process of interviewing, hopefully hiring, and doing trainings to be fully prepared to roll out commercial and public programs in alignment with our partners. As all of the logistics of that is worked out, there will be quite a few rollouts over the next 6 months. So that's the notes that I had. If you have any questions about what we're up to, happy to answer them.
Yeah, just one question about the outreach. Is that next week on the 12th, next Tuesday, is the Laytonville Resource Fair? And it's, I didn't know if that was on your radar or anything.
We will be there.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yep. There's also another one, Working Hands, I believe it is, at the fairgrounds that is on the 14th that we will be at as well. And then Wednesday next week we'll be up in Humboldt for a training, so busy week.
Oh, busy.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Seeing
you.
no further questions, appreciate the report.
Thank you.
Okay, so MCOG Director reports. We'll go to Director Raffanen. Do you have anything to report?
I don't have anything, thank you.
Okay. Anyone from here? All right. Okay, we'll go to the CalCog report.
Mr. Chair, but I think this is a MCOG related personal item. I have a newly permitted driver, and so we're spending a lot of time noticing where bike lanes are and which roads have been updated. So I've just been personally giving shout outs to MCOG and all of the work that's been done for active transportation while I'm explaining why the bus is going around the bike lane and all of these things. It's been kind of an interesting personal work connection I thought I would share with you all.
All right. Thank you. Okay, Ms. Chris.
There is,
Director Chris.
yes, no CalCog report for this month.
All right. And with that, at 3:04, we will adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone.